Well, it's happening again. Trump's entire policy on Ukraine is based on his whims and his emotional fluctuations, and that's really difficult for a country that is fighting for its life and its existence against Russia's invasion. And we just got a leak about Trump's peace plan that he is now trying to push onto Ukraine that is less of a peace plan. From what I have deemed so far, it's kind of the same stuff we've been seeing for a while, which is give Russia a bunch for them to say on paper they'll quit it this time, despite them violating a bazillion of those previous agreements. And then Trump can proclaim victory. And then in a few months or a few years, Russia can just invade a now weaker Ukraine, because a part of this quote unquote peace plan that they're providing or forcing an ultimatum in relation to, saying you have to agree to it or we're cutting off U.S. support, which would be catastrophic for Ukraine, is Ukraine having a cap on how large its military can be. That's one of the items. They also can't join NATO, so a sovereign country can't decide which defensive military organizations they're a part of. And then the one good part, you would say, because I have gone on about security guarantees. We need security guarantees. There has to be some enforceable mechanism like NATO presence in Ukraine that is fending off a future Russian invasion. Otherwise, this will just be a good chance for a spiraling Russia to regain some of its energy and its power and stabilize its economy. So there's a line that experts are saying is the weakest, which goes, and Ukraine should have security guarantees, with not really any teeth to it. So we're barreling towards the same nightmare scenario that is not anything in the interest of peace, but a capitulation that serves Trump's narrative about peace on paper, but not peace in practice. I came up with that myself. Listen, folks. So I'll show you Zelensky's response. It was a really grave one and unfortunate. But here's the reporting about what leaked. U.S. pushing Ukraine to sign peace deal by Thanksgiving or lose support. The White House is pressuring Ukraine to sign on to its new peace proposal by Thanksgiving or lose U.S. support in its war with Russia. The plan, leaked to the news media and confirmed by several officials, includes several red lines for Ukraine, including a significant reduction of its army size and ceding territory to Russia that Moscow has conquered militarily. So, someone answer for me, okay? If you're a Russia defender or you see this as, no, this is just a great, fair peace plan Trump's forcing, that I guess he's been working with Russia on. Is that, or have they been a part of this? Is that why it's so slanted towards them? And answer for me why it would be important for Russia to get Ukraine to reduce the size of its army and not be allowed to join a defensive military organization. What would those two things serve? The only thing I can think of is it would make it easier for them to invade more later. No? Why would they care otherwise? Oh, they think Ukraine's going to invade Russia? Is that what they think? We don't want them to have a large army because we're really scared they're going to invade us. It's just to enable further aggression. And that's what's being pressured onto them. Instead of using every single tool in Trump's toolbox to force Russia, which he still has not done, through the might economically and militarily in support to Ukraine, that the U.S. can leverage into conceding on some of their irrational demands in a time where they're on the brink of some bad things in Russia if they don't get some help pretty soon. Instead of doing that, he's pressuring Ukraine into one that would just open them up to further Russian aggression. And Trump is the most susceptible to taking Putin at his word. We've seen that over and over. And there's one person on the world stage that has the least trustworthy track record on promising to not invade more than invading more, and that's Putin. I'll be reading the translations of this really sad speech that Zelensky had to deliver in response to this.
Українці, українки,
Ukrainians. There comes a moment in the life of every nation when everyone needs to talk honestly, calmly, without speculation, rumors, gossip, without anything extra. Just as things are, just as I've always tried to speak to you. Right now is one of the hardest moments in our history. Right now, Ukraine is under some of the heaviest pressure yet. Right now, Ukraine may find itself facing a very tough choice. Either the loss of our dignity or the risk of losing a key partner. So that's the big headline quote. We're at risk of either losing our dignity or our most important ally being the United States. And that's the threat that the United States is making. And again, this is about Ukraine and it's about us. It does not serve our interests at all. It doesn't serve our allies' interests at all to have Russia continuing to win on its objectives for its broader expansion that then time and time again it uses to undermine the U.S. and to harm the U.S. as it expands its power. Especially right now, it's a crazy time to do it with how vulnerable Russia is on numerous fronts. Either the difficult 28 points or an extremely hard winter, the hardest yet, and the dangers that follow. A life without freedom, without dignity, without justice, and that we trust someone who has already attacked us twice. They will expect an answer from us, though the truth is I already gave that answer on May 20th, 2019 when taking an oath of loyalty to Ukraine. I notably said, I, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, elected by the will of the people as President of Ukraine, pledge with all my actions to defend the sovereignty and independence of Ukraine, etc. So it goes on to say what his oath is. And most expected response ever, which is what he's been saying this entire time. And it's not about warmongering. It's about what would have all of this death and suffering been for? What would this fight have been for if we just hand over Russia every ability to do this again in the future? The whole fight is to stop this permanently for the sake of Ukraine, Europe, and the world. And you'll know, obviously, this is really personal to me, which is why I'm trying to stay calm about it, because sometimes I can't. After now, I forget, has it been a couple months now? Going to Ukraine, going to the front lines and speaking to people and getting a much more, I already held these views from just observing from afar, but a much more intimate understanding of exactly what it is that Russia's doing, the Russian government, and what Ukrainians are fighting for. And so to cede their independence, which is a part of what this is, not being allowed to make their own decisions on unifying with their allies in a defensive posture, how they organize their military, etc., would be to erase everything that was being fought for and that's currently being fought for, and to just enable further aggression. So it sounds like Zelenskyy is saying they're awaiting my answer, but I've already given it. The hope is that Trump's really moody, and so he could be saying this is the ultimatum, and Zelenskyy could like send him a nice picture, and then Trump might flip his stance. But never mind, we'll keep supporting. But it's a scary time, and now knowing so many people personally who are there witnessing this every day in person, my heart aches to wait where this is headed. But I did want to update you on that, and that's the latest.